Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So quite a few people have asked about me doing some videos on my chickens. So today I'm going to do a quick guide to keeping chickens in your backyard in the UK. Now here's one of my little babies. This is a home hatch chicken. You can see how we hatch these chickens in some of the videos that we did earlier on this year and some of the videos on Patreon. This is a Leghorn chicken that Andy sent me the eggs for, and we managed to hatch a few from these. And you can see how beautiful these are. And one of the trademarks of Leghorns is this white wattle. These are white egg layers. Hey, get that dirt off your beak. And these kind of chickens, they're very flighty chickens. So they're not very good around people. They do tend to flap about a bit when they see people. So, but they're excellent egg layers. So that's one of the first things to consider about your needs. That's one of the things to consider when you're thinking about the breeds of chicken that you're going to keep. Now, if you're going to go for flighty chickens, they're not always the best bet for a family setting, because if you've got young kids running about, as soon as the chickens see young kids, they're going to start flapping about. One of the things that's just happened is I've been chasing around my rooster, who, when I tried to catch him, he decided to jump into my neighbour's garden. I've had to chase him around and bring him back in. But the first thing that you're going to need when you're thinking about keeping chickens is where you're actually going to keep them. There's a few things around the housing, so come and have a look at the housing that I've got. This is all DIY, it's all reclaimed timber, it's all reclaimed materials. So this is the run of my chicken house, and you can see how I built this run and how I built the coop using recycled materials at the start of the year, at the start of last year actually. I need to finish off this roof. I need to properly get it finished off and get this wire raised up so we're not banging our heads on it all the time. But you can see the basic size of it. For a single chicken, you want about a square metre of space for them to walk about on. So here I've got about, this is about just over 4 metres, just over 2 metres. So I've got about 20 square metres here. So I could potentially have 20 chickens, but for me, 20 chickens here would be quite tight. For even a large family like ours, 20 chickens is going to be way too many. The way I've designed this run is I've designed it so no outside birds can come in. So at the moment, what we've got is a lockdown. We need to isolate our chickens away from wild birds because of the potential of bird flu. So now with this netting over the top, wild birds aren't coming inside. And also, because I've used this galvanized steel mesh, it makes it a lot stronger than using ordinary chicken wire like this. Ordinary chicken wire like this is quite flimsy and can snap quite quickly, whereas this galvanized mesh is quite strong, and it's nailed in, so it means I'm not getting predators coming into here, and I've never had a chicken lost from inside my chicken coop or chicken run. Now that's the outside space for my chickens to be running about in. If we didn't have chicken lockdown, they'd be free to roam around outside, and they'd be helping control pests and stuff in the garden. That's one of the advantages of them. Now here's my coop itself, or here's the housing of the chickens where they sleep. And this is made out of a recycled wardrobe. So someone threw a wardrobe away, I picked it up and brought it home and put it to another life. I've used the way the wardrobe's designed, so it's easy to clean. So it just opens up like this, and then I can scrape out everything that's inside. So you can see a line of poop here, and that's because just above it, there's a roosting bar. So as a minimum, once a week, it's good to come in and clean this poop out. So this line of poop right in the middle, or chicken manure right in the middle, because it's quite heavy and quite thick, I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to compost it. But that's one of the advantages of having chickens in your garden, is that they're providing you ample manure that you're not having to go out and seek from outside. You can just use this as compost for your garden and fertiliser for your garden. The rest of it is not that polluted. If I see large bits of chicken poo, I'll take that. But I'm going to just generally give it a little stir. Any large bits, that'll come out. So some people will use a lot of sawdust for this, or they'll use shavings, and they'll come in and they'll scoop out chicken poo. Now I don't really like doing that on a daily basis. This is enough for me. That's quite clean bedding, so I'm not going to mess with that. But what I am going to do is I'm going to put on another layer of bedding. And this is just wood shavings from when I'm cutting wood. So it's quite big. It's not the fine sawdust stuff that you're going to get off a sawmill. So you can look at the kind of material that I'm using. It's not very fine dust that you'd get off a sawmill or off a handsaw. It's quite thick stuff that, because it's come from a chainsaw. The reason that that's important is the fine stuff can become a problem for the chicken's respiratory system. Just like dust can affect our lungs, it'll also affect the chicken's lungs and their breathing system. So I know you can get a lot of free sawdust. Don't be tempted to get the really fine stuff. Now, another important part of the coop is this nesting box. This is where they lay their eggs. So let's have a look if we've got any eggs. So we've got one egg. And because of the sawdust, it keeps it quite clean. So do pull sawdust over here. I do like to use straw. If I don't have sawdust, I do like to use straw. Just outside my chicken coop, right outside this door on this side, is the straw pile. So that's where I keep all my straw, and it's just made out of recycled household doors that people were throwing away that I've made a little store out of. And I've got a cat that nests up there, so he's not here at the minute, but there's a big ginger Tom that lives up there. Another important consideration to the design of your chicken coop is what they're actually going to be walking about on. Like most gardens in the UK, we're on clay soil. If you just have clay soil, and especially if the roof's exposed, they're going to turn that into real mud, especially when it rains, and the chicken's feet are going to be covered in mud and they're going to get absolutely filthy. That's not good for them. Your alternative is to cover the whole of the roof. What I've got here is I've got partially exposed and partially covered, so when it's pelting down with the rain, they've got somewhere to be protected from the rain, and when it's sunny, they've got somewhere to bathe in, and they're not getting overheated because of the plastic roof. On the floor of the nut run, you'll notice I've got a thick layer of wood chip. Now if I dig down and I show you how thick this wood chip is, there's at least 6 inches of wood chip there. Because of the pitch of this garden, we've got some limitations on how deep we can go with the wood chip. Now, what I like to do is I like the deep bedding, because what the chickens are going to do is they're going to scratch around in here. The poo's not going to stay on the surface, and that's one of the disadvantages of having clay soil, is it'll become overly polluted with feces, and that can be a pest. That can be a home for worms, and it can be a home for other bugs that will harm your chickens. Whereas with this method, what we're doing is we're using this deep litter that the chickens are going to just turn over. They're going to hide the poo in there, and it's just going to break down and make some really lush compost for us. I won't just restrict myself to wood chip. I'll be throwing grass clippings, I'll be throwing leaves, I'll be throwing all sorts of organic material onto this floor for them to break down and turn into lovely lush compost for me, and that'll feed the rest of my garden. Now, when we're talking about chicken breeds, you've got to think about the type of chicken that you want for your home. So my rooster, he's a cross between a Leghorn and an ordinary red hybrid. So the type of chicken that you'd get, the factory farm chickens, but he's got all the characteristics of a Leghorn apart from these brown feathers that he's got coming through. But he's a wonderful character. He's really gentle as well, but he is, like all Leghorns, very flighty. He's got that characteristic in him. There's my grey bird. She's another Leghorn cross. There's another quite mixed chicken. She's crossed between a leg bar and a red lane hen, a red hybrid. But they're all very full of character. She gets quite broody, and she's hatched out a few chickens. We are in the process of looking for more hens for our garden, so we're looking for some young pullets. That's the thing you've got to consider about adding more chickens to your garden. Now, chicks are a lot of work. They need a lot of protection, especially in the early days. They need to be kept in somewhere warm, so they're not going to be exposed to the cold and die because of that. So if you are going to have chicks, then they need to be under a heat lamp or in your home to get them to about 10 weeks before you can get them outside. Once they've got all the true feathers and they've got to a size that they can handle outdoor weather, then you can mix them in. Never introduce a lone chicken to a flock of existing birds. Always introduce a few of them, so that way any new aggression is meted out on them all rather than on a single chicken, because chickens have a hierarchy. There's always a dominant chicken, hence the term henpecked. So the chickens will gang up on the weaker chicken and they will peck it and harass it. For egg production, you don't need to have a rooster, but one of the advantages of having a rooster is that he will regulate some of that aggression, and when he sees picking on a single bird, he will step in and regulate that. That's the advantages of having a chicken, having a rooster in a flock. Also, if you wanted to, you could use those eggs to hatch more chicks. So that's one of the good things about having him. And the other thing is he just looks absolutely stunning. He's such a cool animal. I mean, roosters are just really cool. With chickens, it's important to consider pests. One of the most common pests is lice and mites. They'll drain the chickens of blood, they'll make them weak, and it's just not good for them. One of the things that you really need is to have a dust bath, and that's what I've got this that's what I've got this cat litter tray for. They've scratched up into it at the moment. You can see it there. I use a lot of wood ash for pest control. Because of the alkalinity of wood ash, it's a fantastic pesticide. So it's a natural, it's not harmful to them, and it's not harmful for the environment either. So if you've got a wood fire or anything like that, it's a good way of making use of those ashes instead of just throwing them away. People still do use diatomaceous earth or diatomaceous earth products. Diatomaceous earth, like wood ash, is very dusty, so use it in a place where it's going to allow them to breathe. Once a month we'll come in with a hose pipe and soap, and we will give this chicken coop a good wash. We'll clean it all out, make sure that we'll check the ends of the roosting bars to make sure there's no lice or anything hiding in there, and we'll give it a proper clean and make sure that the coop is habitable for the chickens. I harvested one round of compost from here when I made the bed, or when I made the new area of the garden just outside the coop, and that wasn't very long ago, but I can see that the wood chip here is being broken down quite nicely, so I'm not far from getting another harvest of compost from here. That's one of the big advantages of having chickens in a garden, or especially in a permaculture setting like we're trying to achieve here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more wood chip to here and allow the chickens to really break this down. Yeah, we managed to create a little microclimate here. So in winter, when it was freezing outside, because of the thickness of the wood chip, it was generating heat, which in turn was beneficial for the chickens because they weren't in the freezing cold, they were actually somewhere warm. I mean, chickens are quite tolerant of very cold temperatures. Some breeds more than others, but it just gives me a little bit of comfort to know that I've done my bit to keep them a little bit warmer. On the breeds of chickens, the red hybrids, they get a bad rap because they're used for egg production and they're used for that sort of thing a lot. I don't think you can beat a hybrid chicken because they're so, they're bred to be quite docile, they're bred to be quite intelligent as well. So they're a general all-rounder. I mean, light Sussex are fantastic for the same thing, but they can be a little bit flighty around people. As soon as my mum comes out, these chickens go crazy. They'll follow her around the garden like she's a Pied Piper because she's hand-reared these chicks and she's raised them, that closely. They've got a really close bond with her. And I love that. I really do love that. It's not the same with me though, but I love that. The last rooster that we had, he was a bit of a nightmare. So the kids have got a little bit wary of the chickens because of him. I mean, the rooster that we've got now, he's a lot friendlier. They're less worried about him, but they're starting to build that relationship up with them again. If you do come in and you do pile it like this, sometimes they can mat it down like they've done at the moment. So every now and then do come in and give it a good stir yourself. It just helps it break down that much faster. You can leave it alone. I mean, the system is designed to be left alone, but I do like to come in and give it a good stir, make sure that the stuff on the bottom is coming up to the top, just in case the chickens aren't doing their job. I'll come and give them a hand. It's not an essential part, but having a good thick layer of wood chip on the bottom is absolutely fantastic for them. Because of what's happened with COVID and food insecurity, backyard chickens have become really popular. It's great for the farmers, but it's a little bit poor for consumers like us, especially when money's hard at the moment. An option might be to get some fertilised eggs and incubate them at home, especially if you've got a broody or an incubator or access to an incubator. You can rent them or you can buy them for fairly cheap, and that might be a workaround. I'm on the lookout for some new hens. Orpingtons are an absolutely fantastic bird, so you can find some nice big fluffy birds if you like that sort of thing. All of mine are large breed chickens rather than bantams or miniature chickens. I like the larger breeds because I want the larger eggs. I don't remember, bigger chickens give you bigger eggs, smaller chickens will give you smaller eggs. So bantams are okay if you want, if you've only got a small amount of space. And bantams, you can get some absolutely amazing styles of bantams. There really are some cool ones. I keep toying with the idea of getting an Araucana. Absolutely humongous chickens. One of I think it's the biggest chicken breed around. And that's one that, yeah, I do fancy playing with that idea. Yeah, they're absolutely amazing. So there's a quick guide to keeping backyard chickens. If you do want anything more detailed, put a comment in the comment section and let me know what you want me to cover, and I'll try and cover that. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe for regular updates, and if you'd like to support our channel, why not become a patron? So I'm going to leave it there for this one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.